Here's Brody Brazil.
You know, this is one of those stories where it has not been officially announced, confirmed, or acknowledged yet, but the reporting is so widespread and it's so solid, I'm just going to say it right here, right now. The Baltimore Orioles have been sold. This is after 30 years of being owned by the Angelos family. They've finally decided to sell the team. We'll talk about who it's going to, why it's good for Orioles fans, and why it's most likely very good for Major League Baseball. Here's some of the basic details. This all started with multiple reports initially. It's been confirmed multiple times over by media outlets, obviously just not acknowledged yet by the Orioles or Major League Baseball. John Angelos took over control of the team. His father, Peter, bought the team back in 1993 for, I want to say, $170-something million. And yeah, now it's being sold for $1.725 billion. Peter Angelos, unfortunately, went through some health issues in recent years. 90-something years old at this point, but John took over the day-to-day operations of the team. It's being sold to a group led by David Rubenstein, who is going to be the control person. There's multiple different main investors, you can say. In fact, one of the other people reportedly investing in the team and will become part owner is actually Cal Ripken Jr. Multiple sources have reported and confirmed that. But Rubenstein is a Baltimore native, so that obviously bodes well. I'll talk about more of his background and history and involvement later on in the video. But again, it's a $1.725 billion transaction for this Baltimore team. Owners of Major League Baseball eventually need to get together and approve the sale to the tune of 75% across the board of the 30 ownership groups. And they actually do meet next week separately in Florida. That was already scheduled. That's not because of this. It's not clear yet whether this will be addressed or brought up by then or even already voted on by then. It's kind of an interesting progressive sale. I believe it's going to start at about 40% and then escalate after that. And as morbid as this sounds, reportedly the sale will actually escalate and be completed upon the passing of Peter Angelos, whenever that does eventually happen. But again, it will need approval by Major League owners of 75%, and we'll see when exactly that even is brought up. As for the Baltimore baseball team, the Orioles lately have gone through a couple different interesting steps. Back in December of 2023, they agreed to a new 15-year agreement with the state of Maryland and the Stadium Authority, and that is to keep Camden Yards running, and also the opportunity to get some public money involved in sprucing up the area, developing the area around Camden Yards. But most importantly, it's a 15-year agreement to stay in Baltimore. That was literally expiring at the last month of last year, and it came right up to the last minute. More on that in just a second, too. But it's a Baltimore team that is now committed to staying for at least 15 years. It can be extended out to 30 years eventually. But they're also coming off a 101-win season and their first division title since 2014. And it was really against a lot of odds last year that they performed that well. They're not a high payroll team, salary-wise, but they have a lot of young, exciting players like Adley Rutschman and Gunnar Henderson and Jackson Holliday coming up and a lot more prospects in the Baltimore pipeline. They are destined for big things in a very tough American League East division. You've always got Toronto and the Yankees and the Red Sox, and the Rays are always sneaky good. It's hard for the Orioles to compete year after year in that division. And yeah, they've always had a low payroll. They've had a quiet winter thus far. You know what? The change in ownership is a huge deal. In fact, more than any player acquisition, I'd have to say, for this winter and the Baltimore Orioles. But going back to where they stand as a team, this was kind of a frustration factor between fans and ownership. A piece in the New York Times back in August of 2023, which said this: the Orioles' $70 million payroll this season ranks 28th out of the 30 teams. It is largely a function of the players' lack of service time, which limits their earning power in the particular economy of baseball. It's team control, right? Those team control years and the arbitration years and so on and so on. Angelos, as in the owner, has a lot of qualms with that system. He conceded that it might not be feasible for his popular young core to be career Orioles, like Brooks Robinson, Jim Palmer, And Cal Ripken Jr., without major changes, he sees only one way the team could retain all of its young stars. Quote, "We're going to have to raise the prices here. Dramatically," he said. So imagine that, a young core of players coming up that are very exciting, that led your team to 101 wins, and you realize that eventually to sustain and keep them, you're going to eventually have to pay a certain dollar amount to make that happen. But you've already got the players in place. You just need to take care of them and keep them. So that did not go over very well in Baltimore, and hence why a lot of Orioles fans are interested in change of ownership to see if this group can stay together. And a great ballpark in Baltimore at Camden Yards can actually be a foundation of what this team might do in their next chapter. David Rubenstein in 1987 founded Carlyle Group, which is now a global investment firm with $293 billion of assets under management. I'm sorry, I had to pause there because I lost track of what I was saying. $293 billion of assets under management. That Carlyle Group since 1987 has grown to an amazing degree. David also hosts television shows on Bloomberg Television and PBS. And you know what? Crazy enough, I actually went back and watched a few videos. I wasn't familiar with him or his speaking engagement or his delivery or his presentation. He is really, really well spoken. Not just a smart guy, but sometimes it comes across as somebody, very polished who knows how to run the Carlyle Group. He previously considered buying the Washington Nationals, and in fact, there was some back and forth before this official transaction with the Baltimore Orioles. It didn't just immediately happen. He's kind of been lurking, if you will, to some degree in buying a baseball team in and around the nation's capital. It wasn't the Nationals. Now it turns out to be the Baltimore Orioles. And he's a philanthropist, which obviously you can admire. He's given a ton of money to various different good causes over the years and decades. Okay, let's get into some other elements here. And I hate to stir up this drama because now the Angelos family is moving on. They're turning a chapter, and they're going to make a pretty good profit off this. But in 2022, reports of infighting between members of the Angelos family over the years, and you could tell that this Orioles situation just wasn't going to be an easy deal. They had that lease with the state of Maryland, which was actually set to expire for Camden Yards in December of 2023. And there was no immediate concern that they were going anywhere anytime soon, but there was some uneasiness about the next lease and the next agreement. Well, it turns out that a new deal got arranged, but the Angelos family, as part of that with the state of Maryland, they said, you know what, we'll do this new deal, and we're not changing hands. We're not selling the team anytime soon. Turns out that's exactly how it played out. Now, I'm not sure if the state has any care or concern about that, but it's just interesting that a new stadium deal was reached, and now the sale is being made. The club and the state had been working on development for the area surrounding the ballpark with $600 million in taxpayer-funded bonds. Also interesting of note, MASN, which is the Mid-Atlantic Sports Network, it's the regional sports network that carries Orioles and Nationals games. That's also part of the sale. So you not only get the team, you also get the TV network, and you also get the TV network that airs the Washington Nationals games. So that's an interesting part of the conversation here and the consideration here for Major League Baseball and its owners as far as this sale. Okay, let's get to some main takeaways here. I said at the start of this video, great for Orioles fans. You get somebody in David Rubenstein who is worth, $3.7 billion. He's very interested in taking over this team. He wants to make a splash, and he's getting this opportunity at the perfect time. No, not while the Orioles are struggling, not while he could buy them for a low dollar amount. He's paying a lot of money, like $1.725 billion for the team, but he's getting a great core, a great ballpark, an invested fan base, and now they're going to be super motivated by what the potential holds for this team at Camden Yards. And sure, it's good for baseball. I mean, not that you need another great team in that AL East, but man, it makes it a lot more fun to have another competitive team from a smaller city. Let's be very upfront. Baltimore is not the same size as Toronto, Boston, or New York. Neither is Tampa, but you kind of have to like Baltimore in that underdog type situation against all of the different Goliaths of that division. The 15-year agreement to stay at Camden Yards, that can easily expand to a 30-year agreement if they figure out that whole development thing within the next 4 years. And you'd have to think that Rubenstein would be a big part of that in wanting to not only take over the team, but develop the area, improve what he's basically just bought, and quickly increase the value. And so I just look at the bigger picture here. The ballpark, which has always been legendary. The players, which have a ton of potential, again, coming off a 101-win season last year, and now the money to back all of this, that is literally all the tools that you need to thrive in Major League Baseball. Some teams have one of those things, some teams have two of those things. In this case, it seems like you're going to get all three. And especially from an owner that is from Baltimore, he's a Baltimore native, and again, to add somebody like Cal Ripken to the ownership group, that is just absolutely tremendous. So the Baltimore Orioles have been sold. This has been discussed and talked about for years. Some people could maybe see this coming, or at least the opportunity for this coming. I don't know that anybody expected it to happen like precisely when it did and how it did, but that is a big deal for a Baltimore team that was having a very quiet winter and offseason. Man, this is about the biggest piece of news that they probably could have ever got. You made it here to the end of the video. You know I appreciate that. Thumbs up down below. That'll help me and the channel. And if you're new here, that's awesome. I really appreciate you finding me and stopping by. Make sure you subscribe so I can definitely see you back here next time.